Ahoy! Headhunter! Hey everybody, welcome to the Headhunter Hideout. I am excited to get going here. Sorry about the time delay. Had a couple technical issues on our end, but I'm excited to welcome Andy Miller to the show today. Andy is the CEO and president of BrainWorks, and Andy founded the company in 1991, and he's currently leading the consumer products practice that they've had, and he's been doing that for the last 2 decades. He has a ton of experience within the industry. He's part of the Pinnacle Society, which is a group of 75 top recruitment professionals in the country, and he is just brings a wealth of knowledge to the industry. So I'm super excited to have you with us today, Andy. And again, apologies for the email issues that I was having, but welcome to the show.
Yeah, good to be here. Thank you.
Yeah. So is this the first time you've been live on LinkedIn, or have you done another LinkedIn live show before? What's been your experience with the live shows?
I did a show a couple years ago, and I'm not even remembering, but I've done one, so it's not I've not done a ton of live shows.
Okay, awesome. Well, yeah, the kind of the focus of this show is for recruitment professionals that are upcoming, and so I always like to just start off with like how you got into recruitment. I know it can be kind of a long story. Most people they fall into the industry, and I'm guessing you have kind of that similar story. But I'd love to just hear a little bit about how you got into the industry originally.
Yep. No, it's interesting. So I was 36 years old, and I was in the phone business. I worked for a mid-sized telephone company called Intertel, and I sold phone systems to a lot of MRI franchise owners. Management Recruiters International was at the time, I think, the largest recruitment franchise globally, and I had a lot of relationships, and I started deciding I wanted something different. I kind of peaked out in the phone business, and so I started talking to some of the owners, and I saw this is a business that could work for me. That it's very sales oriented. If you ask me to screw in a light bulb, I'm probably do something handy. I'm probably not the right guy, but to sell something and deal with people, then I'm in the right profession. So, I got very interested and I started checking it. Ultimately, I ended up I went to Cleveland, and I delayed for a while. I almost went into a business with my father-in-law. That's another story. God rest his soul, but I'm glad I didn't do that. And I loved him to death, but I probably would have driven me crazy to go work for him. But ultimately, then a year later, I came back and I went to, Cleveland and trained in the business in the MRI model for 3 weeks, and then opened my office in December of 1991.
Awesome. So primarily your focus was sales, like coming into the industry. Were you building teams and doing recruiting for your own sales teams, or you were just more of an individual contributor at that time?
I was doing sales, and I had a little bit of management in that experience, but not a ton. I managed 1 or 2 people when I was in the phone business, but it's really been a PhD in learning in both, the recruitment industry as well as, managing others and, running a business. It's all the above. Has been on the job training.
So tell me a little bit about like when you first started in the industry. Obviously things were different back then, technological wise. I mean, what was it like back then for people who were just starting in the industry? Was it literally like, here's a phone and here's a phone book, or how did you guys really get trained in how to recruit back then?
Yeah. So MRI had a system, and the system worked, right? Like Alan Schoenberg, who was the founder of MRI, used to say, fail my way first, right? And so MRI was really good in getting people up and running in the business. If you did what they taught you, the basics, if you took an MPC to market and you market a candidate, and then it's really, in my view, an MPC is a door opener, but can be a great door opener in terms of, I've got this valuable product. If I sound good, if I sound enthusiastic, if they bring some, benefits as a candidate that could to the employer, right? So you're going to start to engage, and then that's how you start a conversation with somebody. Do they have a need for this person? Do they have a need for somebody else? No, I'm not looking for a salesman, I'm looking for a marketing person. Well, great. Tell me more what you're looking for, right? And so if you're good in sales, I once went through a sales training where the trainer said, questions are the answers, right? In selling,
Yeah.
I need to probe. I need to do fact finding. I need to ask good questions, right? So again, the model worked though, right? Listen, in sales, it's a balance of quantity and quality. You can't be a star if you talk to 5 people a day, right? It's just you don't have the volume, right? So it's get on the phone and make things happen, right? That was the model that I was taught. It worked. I joked with, I have a 26-year-old working for me now. And I said to him, Mark, how would you find candidates if you didn't have LinkedIn? Understand, we had no LinkedIn.
Yeah.
We had to get on the phone and go, I'm looking for a brand manager. I'd call up Coca-Cola and I'd go, I talked to a brand manager the other day, and what was his name? I don't remember. I go, well, how tall was he? On it, 5'10". You kind of, you gotta ruse a little bit, and that's a little controversial. Some people think, like so. And then I get a sales secretary who'd give me a Johnny Smith, George Jones. She'd give me 10 names. Those are my next 10 calls. Right now, I'm going to recruit those candidates. But first, you had the name gather because you didn't have a database. There was no Zoom info or tools and technology to get you that information at your fingertips, which is here today. But 30 years ago, those tools didn't exist.
So do you think, okay, like, because I look at recruiting now, I think anybody with a keyboard, anybody with a computer, anybody with a cell phone, access to LinkedIn, they're a recruiter, right? I mean, that's it seems like it's an easier barrier to entry. Do you train people on how to recruit without the technology, or are you like, you know what, we've got the access, let's use this technology to help us? I mean, what are your thoughts with that? I mean,
that's like saying, I got a car that'll drive 100 miles an hour, but I want to ride a bike to work. I mean, maybe you do because of exercise, but the car is going to get me there faster, quicker, better, right? So, I mean, I'd be foolish to not use the technology, right? The challenge is, with technological changes are great, and I try to stay ahead of the curve. We're a super user on LinkedIn. All my people have a recruiting seat, right? So, but let's not lose fact. I was just on a webinar with Danny Cahill, if you know who Danny Cahill is, yesterday. And Danny talked about the internet's making us lazy.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a point there, a really good point, that how do I dig and find people if I can't find them on LinkedIn? Well, network, ask people for referrals. The old methodologies still are tried and true and work, but you can marry them with technologies today. There's a lot of, I message people all over the place with LinkedIn, but the first thing I want to do is I don't want to spend too much time just going back and forth on LinkedIn. I had a guy that the other day was like, I'm sorry, I get spammed a lot on, I don't want to engage. I go, geez, I'm sorry you feel that way. I said, I didn't say you're lost, but that's in a way I did say you're lost. I'm like, listen, I got 30 years of enhancing people in your industry, enhancing their career. I'd love to show you and spend 15 minutes on how I might be able to enhance your career today and in the futures. So make no mistake, I'm selling a candidate on why they should engage with me, and I'm selling a client on why they should engage with us, right? And that I don't believe will ever change, and why the internet and technology will and has changed our industry, but it won't put good people with sales skills and persuasion skills and ability to influence in a positive way. I don't think people like that will continue to thrive in our business.
No, and I think, I mean, I love the way that you describe that with the car and the bike. But to be fair, if you are riding the bike, you might take a little bit longer to get there, but you're going to stay in better shape and you're not going to get lazy. And I think that's what I've seen a lot with technology is, instead of let's spend the effort to really make a connection, it's let's send out 100 messages, let's send out 100 emails and see what sticks. So if you're just starting out in the industry today, we've got all this technology. Do you still are you still like, okay, we've got to make the 30 calls a day, the 50 calls a day? How do you train people in that? Is it still kind of like at the end of the day the phone activity, or how do you blend that technology into it?
There's metrics in the business, in my opinion, that so we use a statistical spreadsheet called the
Yep.
Lock-On Report. It was designed by a consultant I worked with years ago named Pat Scopoliti. And on the right side starts with your goals. Then there's like 7 different metrics. Your goals are how many placements in a quarter do you want to do, right? And what is
Yep.
your dollar bill? And then it goes to how many send outs do I need? What submittals do I need? So I'm less concerned with, even though I was trained the MRI, make 100 calls a day or 50, whatever number. But I do think, again, it's a balance of quality and quantity. If I can't make placements if I don't get interviews, and I
Yep.
can't get interviews if I don't have submittals of candidates that the client reviews and says, yes, I want to interview, or no, I don't. And if they don't, can I learn what's missing here, Mr. Client? So the next time I send you, they are on target and I get a send out. And if I get a send out, but they're not interested, everything should be getting me closer to making a placement. That's the goal in the business, right? If
Yep.
you don't make placements, you're out of business. So
Yep.
there are metrics we look at and we measure. Okay. And again, a rookie's metrics are going to be very different than a 10-year veteran, right? But at the end of the day, they're all still trying to do the same thing. A 10-year veteran has built up, more contacts, and it's not going to take them as long to fill a job or to get a send out. A rookie is going to have to work harder, right? My son read a book recently by Mark Cuban, and in that book he said, don't let yourself be outworked in life. You can control your work ethic. And I agree with Danny Cahill. I think the internet's making us a little lazy. Honestly, I still work till 7, 8 o'clock some nights, right? And I believe in hard work. Like, this country was built on it. And this recruitment is an amazing industry. But you want to work 9 to 5, you're going to get 9 to 5 paycheck, in my opinion, right? But if you work hard and you work smart, again, use the tools. Leverage the tools because they're there. I mean, it'd be silly. Why, to me, to go do what I just described 25 years ago, to name gather a brand manager is Coke is silly because I can just look on LinkedIn and they'll give me 100. So why would I do that? It's whatever gets me to the result quicker, faster, better is the right behavior and methodologies, in my opinion.
No, I love it. And what about with like networking? I mean, you mentioned the networking aspect. Obviously, with the pandemic, that's kind of flipped networking on its head in terms of the in-person networking events, at least. So are you encouraging people to network more digitally, like on platforms like LinkedIn or using social media? And do you see social media playing a bigger role in recruiting as we look over, like, let's say the next 5 to 10 years?
If you look at, the internet and social media and technology's transformed our lives, but not always for the better.
Yep.
If you read my bio, I got a master's degree in counseling. Depression, suicide, mental health is on the rise. And in my opinion, I think technology has played a part.
Without a doubt. Yep.
People are starving for human connection. Go out and watch a family go to dinner and see that 8 people are sitting on their smartphones, not connecting. Like you and I right now are engaged in a conversation. We're connecting, right?
Yep.
If we were going to, you ask me questions, you're going to learn more about, to me, that's what I love about the business. And I still love it is that, if I boil down my essence of my life, I just love connecting to people, right? And good recruiters, that's what they do, right? They show interest in somebody. You think about, we impact people's lives. Besides getting married, having children, buying a home, what you do for a living is probably in the top 3 or 4 things in your life. So I take that seriously. I want to have some fun, but people feel me, right? People feel that this guy really cares, right? And so I think if you can use the internet to start a conversation, or LinkedIn, or however you connect with them, but don't let that be your exchange. If you're leaving it up to just emails to exchange, you're missing an opportunity. People want connection. People want to deal with people where they feel them. They know they care about. I once heard an expression in life: people don't care about how much you know until they know how much you care, right?
Yep.
And so if my client and you feel that I care, man, now we've moved the needle in terms of our relationship. If you feel I don't care and it's just a transaction, I'm in trouble.
Yeah, no. And I think, funnily enough, I think with the pandemic, I think that's almost deepened what you're saying, where we're having a lot less of those personal interaction. So I think it's, in some ways, it's been easier to get people on the phone. I think the challenge of what I've seen, at least on social media and particularly with email, is everybody's got a newsletter. Everybody's doing the bulk emails. Everybody's, on LinkedIn right now, there's a lot of automated messages going around. So it's very impersonal. And I think, when I look at recruiting, I think there's a huge opportunity to actually reach people on the phone. Number one, everybody is kind of scared to make cold calls nowadays. Everybody thinks that people don't actually want to receive them. But I think it's kind of the opposite now. It's like it's refreshing if you do get a call, especially if it's somebody who is really has something to offer you in terms of career wise, and then wanting to make a genuine connection. I think there's a huge opportunity. Do you ever see? Because this is something where I think a lot of contention comes around, especially with millennials and maybe there's generational switch that we're seeing going on in business. Do you think that the cold calling and getting on the phone, I mean, do you ever see that ever changing, or are you just like, that's always going to be the best way to connect with people? And I'm talking like, let's say 10 to 15 years down the line. Do you see that still being the number one way to get a hold of people?
I just had a conversation this morning with a woman who's 15 years in business in the recruiting industry and now has transformed to be a coach who's teaching people how to deliver the proper message, like on, I assume, social messaging. I don't know, because we've got to spend a little more time with her. But here's my point, though. I think that, listen, business is changing, will continue to change. Technology is transforming things. I market at pretty high levels to CEOs and to private equity firms and things like that. I have gotten more CEOs on the phone in the pandemic this year than probably in the last 5 years. And they're again, once in a while I get a person that says, "How'd you get my cell phone?" and is annoyed. But for every one of those, I've had 15 great conversations that's opened the door, that's led to business opportunities. So I think cold calling and selling will still be there. Do you have to look at how to do it differently, how to open the door a little bit differently? Maybe, but I got to tell you, taking an MPC to market and still marketing works. Connecting with the person around their problems and situations, whether you're a candidate or a client, still works. So I think it's a blended approach. And again, I mean, do we market on LinkedIn and use the tools and do emails? Yes, but I think you have to be smart about how do you differentiate yourself? That's selling again, right? Why should somebody talk to me above the noise of every thousands of messages that we're all bombarded with a day, right? So how do I get through that noise? How do I get somebody to hear me and want to connect with me?
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I think, and at least in my experience, I think a lot of people shy away from the phone more and more, but I really think that you really need to be picking up the phone more and kind of taking away the taboo from it. I don't really know even where that comes from. What about with like branding and marketing for recruiting firms? Because again, I think like the marketing and branding, maybe it's not so, there's not so much of an effort because they're very it's a very sales motivated industry. Do you see marketing and branding being more relevant now with the pandemic and everything going on? I'm just curious of what your thoughts on that.
Danny Kael said yesterday in a webinar, he talked about the fact that this woman said, "Well, I don't cold call anymore. I do content marketing."
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's like, and how quickly are you going to be out of business just doing that? I think if you rely on one, listen, it's, I heard that it works so good I stopped doing it, right? You try one thing. If it works, keep doing it. Keep going to the well, but try different things. I've always said to people who've come in my organization, don't do what I say because I say so. Do it because it makes sense. Try it. If it doesn't make sense, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Totally fine.
I'm sorry. I'm on a call. I got to call you back.
That was a cold call. That was a cold call working, right?
No,
right.
one of my employees. But so but I believe again that people want connection, right? I think that's out there. I think you're missing. If you, one of my favorite people is a man named Dick Vermeil, who's a football coach, and I'm from Philadelphia, and he coached the Eagles to a Super Bowl. But Dick Vermeil once said that most limitations in life are self-imposed. So I really believe that a lot of the limitations are up here. Cold calling. You know how many times I've said in my career, I don't have to cold call anymore. I've been doing it for so long. Things should just come to me. Well, maybe they should, but if there's not enough business coming to me, what's my alternative? I know how to cold call. I've done it for a long time. I'm
Yeah.
good at it. So now I just got to get my headset on right and say, hey, like, what's going to happen? The person going to bite me? They're going to hang up on me? What could they do that's right? If your ego is strong and you believe in what you do, and you bring the right mindset, you're going to get results, right?
Yeah. No,
Attitude
100%.
altitude. I
Yeah,
believe
and we got Rob on here. He just said selling is a combined arms deal. You just like you can't efficiently win a war with just tanks and jets or just boots on the ground. A ton of great sales pipelines rely on multiple tactics, which is synergistic. And I think,
well said.
I think again, it's like you said, it's having that balance, and content is the same way. I think the big challenge for a lot of people with content is the mindset can be, who am I going to turn off with this content instead of who am I actually going to get? Who, like, for example, with a video marketing, it's a scary place for a lot of people because they don't want to get on video and they don't want to look stupid and they don't want clients to be put off by them. But if your mindset is, I'm going to use this video to connect with people in a different way, I think it can become powerful. The same with cold calling, though. If I approach a cold call and think the person on the other end is going to be annoyed, then the person on the end is probably they're going to feel that even when they talk to me, that I'm feeling that they're going to get annoyed. So I again, with the pandemic and everything that's going on, are you guys still working remotely? Are you working in the office? What's your current situation?
My whole staff is remotely. We've been remote since March. So let me respond to one thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, sure.
Anything, listen, whatever we do in life, repetition is the key to success, right? So if I'm going to, and I'm, right before the pandemic, I just signed up with a video company in which we haven't been able to enact because we're all remote. And I'm sure maybe I won't be great at the first couple videos I do, but I'm going to do it till we get it right, right? So it's like everything in life, right? So if you're going to thinking I need to be perfect, and trust me, I'm a type A. I understand I want everything to be just right, but again, you're creating a limitation upon yourself, and you need to work on that. The greatest thing that I think people need to work on is their mental state and having their attitude, because you can move mountains if you believe it, right? Henry Ford said once, if you believe you can, if you believe you can't, either way, you're right.
I love that one.
Whatever you believe,
so good.
You'll do it, right? So, but again, that doesn't mean you won't fail a few times. I've failed hundreds and hundreds of times, but I've had a lot of success along the way too by learning from those failures.
So let's talk a little bit about that mindset right now. So you were in the office, now everybody's remote.
Yep.
How have you? Because I think with recruiting anyway, it's a big psychological game. Regardless, it's a roller coaster. It's up and down. It's a lot of things that can happen. There's a lot of surprises. How are you kind of coaching your people from a remote point of view, and how are you keeping people motivated? Or have you found like people are just right now they're more driven than they were before? What's that transition look like for you?
I think when you're in a place where if you're leading people, touch them, connect with them. It's the same thing we've been talking about relative, whether, like I got people that work for me. How you doing? Right? Like, and I took on a partner this year who's a personal friend, and he's a serial entrepreneur, and he'll check in. Andy, how you doing? How you feeling? Right? How's your, how's your, exercise? Right? Like, I mean, again, I want people to know, in my employees, particularly as well as externally too, that I care about you, not just about the business you're going to produce. And I do care about that. I care about you as a person. So are you down? Is there anything you need? I say like twice a week we get on Zoom calls. I go, if anybody needs anything, if you're not feeling great, check in with me, right? And I'll check in regularly around how's their emotional state, and again, and what else do they need? Do they need some help? Do they need, are there some tactics they need, right? Do you want to, make a plan, or how can we help you? I have my CPG team. We meet and I talk regularly to them about, what do you need, right? It's make sure that you're on target, right? It's, back to now get into some tactics. It's planning in the business, right? I once heard that, failure to plan is failing to plan, right?
Yep.
So do you have a plan, or do you
Yep.
just get up every day and just, well, maybe I'll call this one, or maybe I'll call this one, and you're just throwing darts against the wall. The person has a plan, now you got a goal, an objective, and a target, and are you going to hit that, right? Hopefully more days than not, you do hit it.
Have you seen productivity levels up or down, or was it kind of like down initially and then up, or just kind of remain the same? What have you found with the team?
Yeah. Well, personally, I think I was a deer in headlights for the first couple of weeks in COVID. And listen, my personal production in the business is tied to retail, right? So
Yeah, it's
retail, I mean, thinking no one's going to go buy to retail, and everyone's going to be down, and it's a disaster. And well, listen, again, that's in my head? Is it the truth? Things were off, but hey, I've been through 3 recessions already. Things were off then too, right? What do you do? So again, I'll come back. The first thing, and it took me, listen, I didn't get here. I was on some webinars. I'm trying to look for the answer. The answers generally within in life. You can find your own answers if you search deep and hard enough, right? And I seek counsel. I seek advice. I talk to others to help me. And then my team got after it. I think everybody was maybe in that. We had, Q1, we had a record Q1. Q2, rocky. Q3 was a record. Q4, we're going to be up 50% this year as an organization. Awesome. I'm really, really proud of
that's huge
and what we've delivered. Yep.
So, okay. So moving forward with, the pandemic's over, do you think remote work would be is something that you're looking at, or like kind of having a mix between remote and in the office? Or are you like, man, we got to get back in the office?
Listen, I hired a woman in Denver. I hired a man in Tampa. I'm hiring people remotely. I got a woman starting in Dallas. They're not coming to my office in New Jersey. Now, post pandemic, I want to make sure we put the systems, whether it's Zoom, but I do believe we'll have some get-togethers once a quarter at least, or come in and spend time with us. We've built a nice culture. I want that camaraderie, and I do think, there's something, great about sitting in a conference room or networking or having a group, outing to a social event somewhere. So I want to continue with that. But I think if there is a silver lining, the pandemic, I knew it before, but it just reinforced it. Now, companies, more conservative companies, productive people are going to be productive people. Do they need to be touched and managed? And for sure. But, again, I think it's transformed. We're going to look at our model. Do we need as much space or not? Or, how are we going to do it? We may do it differently. But, remote working absolutely has worked and can work.
Yeah, and I think, from what I've heard from a lot of organizations, productivity has gone up. Now the bigger question is kind of what we were talking about with the mindset is, how do you coach people into being able to stop working? And especially in an industry like ours where, you can work 16, 17-hour long days. And I think sometimes coming to the office is nice because you have the drive home and you can kind of have a little bit of that disconnect. Working from home and working for remotely, it's a lot easier to just keep on working and not necessarily have that disconnect. And like I said, people who are productive, they're going to be productive no matter where they're working from. What about in terms of like kind of helping people pivot through the pandemic? Have you had people that are maybe in industries that haven't been doing well, and they've been working in those industries for 10, 15 years? There's a big change. Do you coach them to stick with it and just stick with that industry, or are you a big proponent of just pivoting quickly and just jumping into something new? Like, how do you coach people through that?
Yeah, I don't know that I have a silver bullet for that one, but we've been pretty fortunate in that, again, we're diverse, and even in my practice, which I believe, I don't know the exact, I mean, if I looked at, recruiters in my industry probably are off significantly. I've been fortunate, I guess, based upon a number of factors. One is I've got a guy who works in private equity, and he's fed, my CPG team a fair amount of business this year. So, I mean, but to answer the question, I think you have to be smart about it. Like if I were working, I don't know, healthcare, and to certain verticals, not, finance and vertical, could I pivot some titles within the same industry? I still know the industry, but now I got to look at from some different titles. So I do think it's smart to consider pivoting, but I think I don't think you want to say, oh, I made 30 calls today, it didn't work. I mean, if I went a month and I didn't get a job order, I'm concerned, right? I mean, if my metrics haven't changed and I'm still making the marketing and doing what I want. So listen, I think you always have to analyze what's working and what's not and consider pivoting. The good times are bad.
Yeah. And I mean, I think especially now with, I'm just thinking of construction. That was the field I worked in, commercial real estate. Those are difficult industries to be in. I know I got a number of friends that are in marketing. Obviously during this time, marketing can get cut, quite often, but it also looks like within the recruiting industry, a lot of the bigger firms, they've had to furlough a lot of people as well. And so there's an opportunity to become that specialist and be that person that survives these times. And obviously you've had a number of recessions that you've survived. So I want to be sensitive of your time here, and we can start wrapping up. But what, in terms of surviving recessions, what advice do you have for people, particularly how it relates today? Like what, if especially if you're somebody who's just starting out and you've been in the business for less than 2 years and you hit a time like this, what's your advice? And like, what would you say to somebody, and what would you say to yourself? Like when you first hit that first recession, like what kept you going? Like what motivated you through that time?
When I opened the business, like everybody told me, it's like you have a lot of naysayers in life, right? And I thought there is no way that my analogy was that. Sorry.
No, you're totally fine.
What happens is, so I literally thought I'm in a boat in the middle of the ocean, and I need to find my way back to shore. There's no way, failure is not an option, right? So again, whatever it took, I used to come home. I had small children when I opened it and work till, I'd see the kids, I'd eat dinner, I'd get back on the phone till 10, 11 o'clock at night. It's just, failure wasn't an option, right? So go back to my Mark Cuban quote, right? People, what happens is you change your headset and there's no business out there, so you stop working hard, right? I think in recessions, you just need to have the headset that says, I'm going to have to work 1.5 times as hard, or I got to double up my mind. There's still business out there. I was just talking to someone who said 2008 was a recession. We didn't increase, but we didn't drop in 2008, right? We stayed pretty flatline, which I was proud of, given, the financial, collapse.
Yeah, it's huge.
Things that were happening. So again, it's not easy. Get coaching. There's, don't suffer in silence, right? I mean, because there's plenty of resources, yourself or others out there, people who can assist you. But again, make sure that you're mentally healthy and you're able to go, and then make sure you're bringing value. Again, if I've got a great MPC, if I can sell what I bring and differentiate. Well, we don't need to, we can just post on LinkedIn and get what we want. Really? Are you getting A-level talent, Mr. Client? Or maybe you're just getting the best of what's answering ads, right? So again, now I'm going to sell why they ought to work with me again and benchmark me. Hey, Mr. Client, if it's on contingency, why don't you look at one of my candidates versus what you're finding on your own? If mine's not any better, it doesn't cost you anything, but mine is better and they make an impact on your business. Isn't that worth a lot of money to your business, right? So again, it's selling and bringing value again. So that's my first. You got to know how to deliver value. If you're a commodity, you're going to be treated like a commodity.
Yeah, no, I love it. And last question I was going to ask too, just I'm curious how you bring people into the industry that are new. Like, do you typically bring people who have experience or don't have experience? I'm guessing it's a mix of both. But
Yeah.
if you bring someone new into the industry, are you just you train them up, and then is it kind of like a sink or swim mentality, or what's your mentality on bringing people into the industry?
I spent too much time and too much money trying to train people in the industry. And can it be done? Of course it can be done. I mean, I went into the industry without any, but I think it's not an easy business. People think, oh, I pay you $30,000 to $50,000. Really? Well, it isn't so easy. You get to the finish line where someone has to accept your offer to make revenue, and they just found out that, their mother got sick and they're not moving to this great job that they wanted to take, because I've had that happen, right? So that's tough, right? And you got to, pick yourself up and then go forward, find the next candidate or work on the next opportunity, right? So this business is not for the faint of heart, right? So to me, anyway, we shifted our model a couple of years ago. I actually found a recruiter who recruits recruiters. And in the last couple of years, it's really catapulted our growth by, much like we're telling our client, bring in the best of the best. This recruiter's doing that for us internally. Where now, can it work? Can you train people up? I think it's just a longer cycle. I think it's harder. And, to me, I put a lot of time and energy into folks trying to train them with moderate success. And so what I would say is, if I was coaching someone to coach someone, it's have metrics, measure the person, hold them accountable, but work with them. You're human too. This is tough. Work with them both in skill sets and support them emotionally. But right, that would be my advice if you're hiring people who've never had experience in the business.
Yeah, I mean it's super challenging because it does seem like it's hard to anticipate if someone's going to be good in recruiting. And even some of the best salespeople I've seen who have proven sales records, they get into recruiting and they don't have a problem getting the job orders necessarily or doing the activity, but there's just so much that goes into it in terms of knowing the business. What about like, do you ever bring on like project coordinators or people maybe in like a lower role and have them in that
We have
role?
3 levels in our organization. We have a practice leader who really is like the rainmaker developing the business, right? And he or she will do some recruiting. Then we have what we call account managers, which their job is to source and work with the client. Like, I had a woman that works for me 20 years, fills about 80% of my personal searches. I capture the client. We set up a kickoff call. She then takes it over. She's someone that works for her, but then she runs the search from there. And then I'm off trying to capture new business, right? And then we have sourcers that do nothing but recruit. They don't really interact with clients either. That and then if they develop and they get good and they want that, then we move them from project coordination or sourcing to account management. And then if they really wanted to become a practice leader or a full desk, they can do that too.
That's you're working on people's strengths at the end of the day. So I love that. Well, look, we're 45 minutes in, so I really appreciate your time, and I know you've got a webinar to join here as well, so I want to be sensitive of that. Andy, I mean, honestly, your passion, it comes through the screen. Obviously, you're super passionate about recruiting. You're super passionate about people. I love the fact that your business is growing right now. I think that's a huge testament to the type of leader that you are as well. So I appreciate everything. I know I kind of already asked the questions I would usually ask for wrapping up, but if there was one resource or one recruiter out there or somebody that you've learned a lot from that you would advise other people to follow, who would that be? I'd love to hear who you learn from if that makes sense.
Well, I just spoke about him a couple times on this call. I would say Danny Cahill's a master. Danny is, just a thought leader. He's passionate. I think, again, what's tried and true still works. He talked about in the webinar I was on with him yesterday about, MPC marketing. They generated $2.2 million worth of new business in their last year, so again, and then he's also trying social media and other things. He's not afraid to try new and blend it, kind of like one of the callers, talked about. It's a multi. So, I think Danny is always trying to look ahead and see, try new things and blend, what's tried and proven. And so, if I were starting out and I wanted to be coached or counseled, I know Danny is, also does training and development and coaching with others. So that would be somebody I would look to.
And when are your videos going to be coming out? If you got a date on that, or that's kind of getting pushed, because I'm looking forward to just seeing you on video and seeing the value that you're bringing as well. With
Yeah, I wish you know what, we have not. I mean, we're really looking to. We've sort of postponed it till we think we're going to be back in an office, but I don't know. I guess we may need to relook at that and how we do it. So I don't have an answer yet, but thank you. I will keep you updated as I get that answer.
and people okay to reach out to you on LinkedIn, and
Sure.
LinkedIn's the place to find you, and
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, well, anyone who's out there, definitely connect with Andy and reach out, particularly if you're in recruiting. I know there's a couple people that are regular viewers that are really heavily involved in recruiting that I'm sure will reach out. But Andy, it's been a pleasure. I'm glad we were able to make this work. And I've learned a ton, and I'm sure everybody out there has learned a ton as well. Look forward to seeing some more of your content in the future as well, and just seeing the value that you're going to bring to the community as well. So yeah, we're good to go here. Thanks to everybody who's out there. Tom, thanks. Majun, thanks. Rob, appreciate those comments. Andrew, you too. And we will see you guys next on Monday, and I'll have an announcement over the weekend of who the guest is as well.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it.
All right, take care, Andy.
Take care. All right, bye-bye.